to you live from our house where we're not eating a corporation's chicken products or their dipping utensil. Anyways, this is Interdimensional RSS, the unofficial Rick and Morty podcast.
It's a special episode.
Hey, good. If you were listening to our special episode, let me just tell you, I didn't have any thoughts of what I wanted to say for that opening. So if you can tell, and I'm sure you can, congratulations, you just got me off the cuff giving you an intro.
Amazing. Hello, everybody. I'm Travis.
Hey, I'm Brandon.
Welcome to a special, unplanned, up until today episode. Bonus content. We're slinging that 10 around for our listeners. But this is a special episode of Interdimensional RSS, the unofficial Rick and Morty podcast. Just want to foot stomp that a couple more times before we get into it. For those of you that are regular listeners to the show, thank you so much for listening. You know where to find us. But if you're new, maybe this is your first time hearing the podcast, and you want to get in touch with us, there are several ways you can do that. You can follow us on Twitter at Rick and Morty Pod, over on our subreddit, rickandmortypodcast.reddit.com. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/Rick and Morty Podcast. Send us an email, rickandmortypodcast@gmail.com, or go to our website, apatheticenthusiasm.com. You can find this show, all the other shows that we do on there. You can find links to our TeePublic site where you can buy a T-shirt if you like us that much, and or just support the show at patreon.com/Rick and Morty Pod. So we're not doing a full episode, because
No way.
That's not what's going on. We are going to kind of merge our two normal segments that would be at the top of the show. So Brandon, if you're ready, it's time for semi-pertinent news / the main only thing.
Oh no, you didn't prepare me for this! Interdimensional RSS, the unofficial Saucecast. It's the main pertinent thing, semi-pertinent main thing. News.
All right. Yes, that's right. The semi-unofficial, definitely unofficial Saucecast. We're here to talk about the sauce. In all ways, shape, and form. So we are here to talk about the sauce that is the sauce that we've talked about for months and months, despite our best interests. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about a new podcast that released today called The Sauce. It was a 3-episode, I'll use air quotes, episode podcast. These were relatively short episodes. I think in total, the 3 episodes were about 41 minutes long, so it's almost one of our normal episodes.
Right.
But yeah, so it was 100% a sponsored podcast that was put out by a very large fast food corporation. It was also done by Studio at Gizmodo and Onion Labs, and it was hosted by Catherine LeClaire, and we both listened to it today.
Yes, we did. But before we get into that aspect of it, Travis, I guess I kind of want to establish, since this is an episode, the Saucecast episode, I want to go back a little ways.
Ooh,
and
okay. Set the scene. I want to. This isn't going to be like an origin story, is it?
No.
I'm fed up with origin stories, Brandon.
I was bitten by a radioactive sauce packet. Anyway,
I went to an animated movie premiere in the late 90s, and ever since.
So we'll go back to the season 3 premiere.
Yeah, April 1st, 2017.
Let's talk about that real quick and establish our history of our thoughts of the sauce, all the way up till October, and then from October so we can like separate into 2 phases of where our thoughts are.
Okay.
Is that all right? Is that all right with you?
No, I'm 100% into it. It's kind of fun to look back at that date, the season 3 premiere, because that was another day where we didn't necessarily expect to be recording a podcast at the end of that day,
Yeah.
but the events that transpired, we both felt like we had to get an episode out, right? So the season 3 premiere, April Fool's Day, they trick everybody with a brand new episode of Rick and Morty, and it was awesome. It was one of the best episodes of the year, in my opinion, and one of the things that was consistent in the plot line of that was a dipping sauce, right? Rick has a desire for this Szechuan sauce that he couldn't get since it was discontinued in the late 90s. He goes and uses his like subconscious dream world thing that he's in to try the sauce. At the end of the episode, he's talking about how that's his whole motivation, right, Morty? Like he wants that Mulan dipping sauce, and so because the episode was so standalone, it was so far removed from the rest of season 3,
Yeah, absolutely.
and it was so like this bit that just hit on a lot of really great areas and was reoccurring throughout the episode. It was something that really clicked with the fan base, and just like many other episodes that have one really big thing going through them, like there was a lot of time between April and the rest of season 3, for the fan base to just really cling to the idea of this dipping sauce and sort of echo Rick's desire to just get their hands on that sauce. And it started out, I think, as just like a fun meme and something that the fan base kind of clung to as a way to stay excited about season 3.
Right. Yeah, and I think what happened is April 1st, that stuff happens. I'm hiking up a mountain, and then you freak out, and you're like, Brandon, where the hell are you?
I freaked out so hard.
Why aren't you watching this episode? We have to talk about this. And also Pickle Rick. I'll say that about Pickle Rick too. The hype for those two things was really kind of what people were clinging on to for that between April and when it came out in June, July, right?
Yeah.
And so that really gave time to create a fury for this Mulan Szechuan dipping sauce, and I think I have to go back and look, but or listen, I should say. I think we were both like, I think we both took it as a joke, in that like it's not, this can't really be what the the show is about. It has to be kind of a just a whatever throwaway.
It was a bit. I mean, realistically, it's something that Justin Roiland really did like. It's something that if you've been a fan of Rick and Morty for a long time, you know that there are certain things that Justin Roiland is really into that find their way into the writing of the show, right? And there are ways that he acts about certain things, sometimes really obscure bits of nostalgia, where it's just sort of so far out there that it makes for great content in the over the course of the show. And so, yeah, like Roiland comes out afterwards and is like, yeah, no, I really did love that sauce. I'd love to have more of it. And I think that, again, fueled the fans a little bit to be like, yeah, no, I'd be interested in trying it.
Yeah.
Why not?
So then we get through season 3, and I feel like it dies down a little bit, right? And like people, as soon as they see season 3, they realize, oh, okay, it is a throwaway gag. It's just a gag. That's not really what the show is about.
Yeah, I mean, we were, we didn't get through all of season 3 before it was over. Because come October, when we had the official Saucegate event, I think we still had a couple more episodes left in the season.
Right. But just the fact that the average viewer, we could see that the show wasn't about the sauce. That's not really what it was about.
No, obviously it was kind of like a one-off thing.
Yeah. And so then at some point in time, when this whole Saucegate thing started to kick off, when Chef Mike, and if you listen to the podcast that we'll talk about later, says that he did the, oh yeah, maybe we'll work on it, winky face or whatever on his tweet.
Right.
That's when the buildup started happening. And I will say that it was a positive buildup for that, because I was like, oh, cool, good job, McDonald's, you're doing something for the fans.
I will give them the benefit of the doubt that they heard the fans. They heard this outpour of interest in a dipping sauce of all things, and a corporation that size actually saying, "Yeah." Well, I mean, and initially just Chef Mike saying like, "Yeah, I'd see what he says. I'll see what I can do," which is in no way a promise to do anything.
Right.
But
When I say I'll see what I can do in a work setting, usually that means I'm going to forget what I just said to you and
yeah.
go do my own thing again.
uh, and there was before the crispy tenders launch, there was a promotion sort of that they did where they came out with like 4 gallons of the sauce or whatever it was,
Oh, yeah,
and they
that's right. That's right.
sent one of the bottles to Royland, and then they like raffled off the other 3 bottles, and they came in like a really cool set where it was like it looked kind of Rick and Morty esque
Like
or whatever.
those Pelican cases.
Yeah, exactly. And there were tons of like social media traffic of Royland and the rest of the writing staff like trying the sauce, and Royland actually getting to experience it for the first time,
Yeah,
or like first time in this decade.
and this fan for like, oh, that's so cool that they're doing that for this select few folks, dead mouse
Yeah, well,
and
he paid a pretty price for one of those bottles, but
yeah.
you know, it was one of those things where it was like, all right, cool, like they actually made it happen. Yeah, a lot of people probably felt like, dang, I wish I could have had some. Royland actually used some of his personal stock of sauce during the Houston the hurricane
Hmm.
that happened. Like when they were doing fundraisers, they were like raffling off like bottles of his sauce that he had to like raise money for charity and things like that. So like there was some positive spin to it. There was some good stuff going there for a while,
Yes, yes.
and
But
realistic,
before it was a way to make money.
right?
That's when it was still kind of on the positive side of things.
Sure. Which brings us to October, when uh, the big MacD is trying to um, drum up excitement for their new chicken tenders that they are releasing. And what's the big thing that goes with McDonald's chicken is their sauce.
Sauce. The
And because
sauce.
everybody has been echoing all year, we want this sauce, they decide that they are going to include that in a limited promotion uh, that they're going to send out to kind of drum up excitement. I want to get into some of the specifics of what happens here when we talk about the Sauce podcast.
Okay.
But there was a store local to where I live that did have the promotion going on.
Yeah.
If you want to hear my full account of what happened that day, including interviews with people that were there, people that got the sauce that day, there is a previous episode that we'll link in the show notes, because I honestly don't remember which episode that was offhand.
Yeah.
But yes, they had a very limited amount. I believe there were 8 sauce packets in the store. So, or maybe, yeah, maybe it was 8. Maybe it was 20. I think there might have been 20 in the store that I was in. But knowing that hours before it was being handed out, like, it was still a peaceful environment. Yes, there were fans that were frustrated, but the riots and the mayhem that is unfortunately getting the most attention from that date, that was not the scene where I was that day. And there were actually more people like sharing it and with complete strangers
Yeah.
and kind of being cool and just being excited to be there for the event, that I felt like it was unfortunate that a few areas, or the actions of a few really bad fans, I guess, that those were the ones that were highlighted in that experience. But it got a lot of attention. It got mainstream attention, for in a bad way for Rick and Morty fans, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And there was a tweet that was sent the next day by McDonald's saying, we're going to bring it back. We're bringing it back at a large scale this winter, which is why on our last normal episode, we made a little joke. We had our little poem talking about how it was still like 59 days
Yeah.
and no sauce, right? Because we were like, it's been winter for a long time. I've shoveled piles of snow and still no Szechuan. Well, we released that episode, and maybe a day or two later, we start seeing posts on Reddit
Yeah.
and then some social media buzz that the sauce is coming back, and there will be a podcast that is released on February 22nd that will detail the entire sauce epic, and
Yes.
As well as announce the official release date for the sauce. So I think that brings us up to speed. Is there anything I kind of skipped over, Brandon, before we
No,
before we
I
press
think
on?
I think that's right. So it was episode 38 for actually our season 3 recap, where I believe that we do our we have some interviews from folks, actual audio that you took from your phone while you're there, and like you said, we'll talk about it more when we actually get into phase 2 of this conversation.
Okay.
But yeah, I I want to that tweet that McDonald's sent out originally, the day after or whatever. It's full of like try hard cringy references to Rick and Morty.
Right.
That kind of, as we go into talking about the Sauce podcast, how kind of your word is your phrase is tone deaf, and I think that that's accurate. Where in this apology they say not cool. We're gonna make it right, and we plan to make this right. You're some of the best fans in this or any dimension.
Yeah.
That type of stuff.
Yeah.
And even in the tweet itself, you spoke, we've listened. That's the way the news goes. Like,
Yeah.
it's a McDonald's tweet.
So let's kind of roll through this. I have a lot of thoughts about that aspect of this campaign as it is. But so for the Sauce podcast, right? I fired it up this morning, started listening, my blood started boiling. I'm not and listen, like, I come from a unique position. I co-host a Rick and Morty podcast on a regular basis. I feel very close to this fan base and the community, and this whole sauce thing is a shred of that community, but I don't feel like it gets to the heart of really who we are as fans and what we genuinely appreciate about the show. Anyway, so this podcast is portrayed as investigative journalism. It is if you listen to Serial or S Town or any number of like true crime podcasts, it's sort of played out in that way. But as I quickly came to believe, and I think evidence supports it, this is not maybe all in all journalism as much as it is maybe some very targeted marketing in terms of a major corporation's intent to promote a product.
You're absolutely right. I'm trying to think of a good example without me getting in trouble of somebody. Investigative journalism, right? So let's go back to a Spotlight. Let's use Spotlight as an example. That the Oscar-winning film Spotlight about the New York Times and the scandal for
With the Catholic Church. Yeah.
the Catholic Church, right? If the Catholic Church had paid the New York Times or whatever, I forget what newspaper it was,
Yeah, I think it
to
was Chicago
Oh,
Spotlight or something.
Tribune, maybe. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, anyways, so if the Catholic Church pays an investigative journalist to find out the truth behind the Catholic Church, well, there's a little bit of conflict of interest there to me.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
so no slack on the host, Catherine Leclerc, but you can't be investigating journalism if you're being paid by the people who you're supposed to be investigating.
I agree with you, Brandon. There are a couple there. So there's a couple of things like right off the bat that maybe trigger me a little bit, and
Triggered.
yeah. One of the things is you discover very early on in the episode in the first episode a theme that has existed throughout McDonald's campaign with the Szechuan sauce.
Okay.
And that is their inability, probably due to the law of the United States, to directly quote or reference Rick and Morty. Through the October campaign where they brought the sauce back, through the tweets and everything else, they've been very specific to try and reference things that are sort of about the show
They have avoided saying
without
Rick and
ever actually mentioning Rick and Morty. And I think the reason why is they don't want to pay the creators. They don't want to pay Adult Swim. They don't want to pay the show itself for being what is really driving this campaign, what is really the force behind the interest in the sauce. So they do talk about the show in the first episode, and they do give it credit, but it's clear that they can't say what the show is, or and so for me as a Rick and Morty fan and as a podcaster, I'm just like, oh, it already is like they're always walking that line where it's and to the point where, like, in their interviews and stuff, I know that people are being coached to not say the name of the show,
Yes.
because they'll get into trouble.
And I think that references or digs into a bigger issue I have with it, right? If they're not legally allowed to say it, we do a Rick and Morty podcast. We say Rick and Morty all the damn time on this Rick and Morty podcast.
Rick and Morty.
we live and breathe Rick and Morty. I have a Rick and Morty tattoo. Rick and Morty. Like, I can say as much as I want, right? And Adult Swim's not going to come after us and be like, "Hey, you said Rick and Morty." To me, to me, I don't know the legality of it, but if they are unable legally to say Rick and Morty, if they are unable to say Justin Roiland, because they talk about the creator,
Right.
They reach out to the creator. They can't even say Roiland's name. That to me says that there was some behind the scenes stuff going on, and that they can't say that. And if they cannot say it out loud, then they are not tied in any way to this, and they are still cannibalizing the fan base.
Right. And the reality is, like, we talk about how the Sauce podcast says it's investigative journalism to get to the bottom of what happened with the sauce. But what it really is it's an ad. It's a 3-podcast ad. It's 41 minutes long. And it is a way for McDonald's PR to advertise that they are bringing the sauce back in a way that they believe appeals to the Rick and Morty fan base, the people that would be excited about the sauce to begin with. This is their way to target that audience. And for all of you that listen to this podcast on a regular basis, they're not far off, right? Like, you listen to podcasts, otherwise we wouldn't know each other. All right, Unity. So I appreciate it. But when you get into the whole back and forth, like, laws and how you can't advertise using certain people's names or likenesses without paying those people, that to me is like a clear indicator. Yes, this is an ad. This is an advertisement. in the form of a podcast. And because they didn't get consent from the creators of the show or the show itself, obviously they can't say the show itself. So again, they are dancing around Rick and Morty in order to make some money off of us fans.
It's like when certain political candidates are, they have their rallies, and then they use music, right? And then the artist is like, I don't support your shit, dude, or dudette. You can't use my music. And then they're like, oh well, we can't use your music anymore. It's similar to this. So okay, so the first episode is kind of the introduction of the sauce and the podcast and kind of the background of it, right?
Right. Yeah. It sort of does that pre Chicken Tendies event, the build up to the blowout, so to speak.
Yeah. Chef Mike talking about how he, kind of an offhand tweet started to snowball into this kind of fervor, and the PR guys talking about PR stuff.
And while we're talking about this specifically, I do want to say Chef Mike has been amazing through this entire experience. I completely feel for the guy because he has been bombarded on social media. He's had the opportunity to talk to Justin. He's had the opportunity to really engage with hopefully some of the better sides of the fan base. We tried desperately to get him to come on this show
we
several times. Unfortunately, that didn't pan out.
And maybe that's why we hate McDonald's so much. Is that
I'm saying,
Chef Mike, if you ever quit or get if you ever leave the company, let us know and we'll talk.
We're here for you. We're here. We're here if you need to talk. Anyway, yes, Chef Mike is awesome, and realistically, I don't put the emphasis of the blame, or really much, if any, of the blame on him as far as how out of hand this got. But it was good to finally hear his side of it on this podcast and hear sort of his perspective as to how it all went down and sort of what he had to do behind the scenes to even make those like 4 gallons of Szechuan happen or to try and produce it on a larger scale. It was pretty cool to hear those aspects of the process.
Absolutely. And I've pretty much said from the get-go, from when episode 2 starts and the riots, they call it the riots, right? When all that stuff started, Chef Mike is the one who I felt for the most, because he ended up being the face of this. The public face of McDonald's to the public, saying like, oh, hey, look, Chef Mike, in charge of Szechuan sauce. And I legitimately feel that he used the word hamstrung, so I will say that there. He was hamstrung. He was thrown under the bus by McDonald's. They were the ones who forced fans' hands to send him all the nasty tweets that he got.
Yeah.
And so, anyways,
so the transition from the episode 1 to episode 2 of the sauce is moving from this blissful period where everyone's just hankering for that sauce, but then everything kind of goes wrong. And
PR guys are like, "Oh, what? Rick and Morty? What is this?" Yeah, I guess there's
a quote from this episode that talks about how this went from the quote pinnacle of PR perfection, end quote, to this huge disaster. Right? It kills me to hear that because this is not the pinnacle of PR perfection. This is riding the coattails of the most popular animated series out currently.
Yes.
And it's not the pinnacle of PR perfection. It's getting lucky and taking advantage. So
I would argue that 10 or not the Cloverfield paradox is a greater pinnacle of PR.
Yeah, they were able to take a movie that wasn't very good promote it during the Super Bowl and release it at the end of the game and make everybody want to watch it. Okay, that's
Yeah.
the pinnacle of PR perfection. So let's move into episode 2, which is another 14 minutes of paid advertising, where we talk about the fallout, right? We talk about the unbelievable, incomprehensible events
Oh
that
my
took
God.
place where the loving major corporation that is a global like force is
did this for
somehow
you.
it's impossible for them to comprehend the level of interest and excitement that was
Oh my God.
the
How
Szechuan sauce.
how could we have known? How could we have known? But
No one, no one, no one, no one. Like when that guy says no one like 80 times, I'm like, no, there are people. I think we talked about it on this show about how many people legitimately wanted to get their hands on that sauce.
but by the way, as an act of we don't want to get torn up by this corporation, and in solidarity with them not naming Rick and Morty, we will no longer name the company by its name.
Oh, okay,
Uh,
good. Yes,
yeah. So the corporation,
the corp,
the
right?
corp and the untitled Asian
Big
dipping
burgers as they were.
Big Burger. Um. Anyway, so yeah, they they knew going into it, and that's they say multiple times, and I was talking to a fellow on Twitter how they keep emphasizing before they say anything about it that like you were doing it for the fans. We couldn't have known supply and demand would be so huge for it, but we're doing it for the fans.
Yeah.
Uh, and
Yeah.
that's a common through line throughout the the podcast.
Yeah, and I like that they at this point they refer to us as sauce fans and
Yes,
people that were eager for the sauce because we were sauce fans.
not Rick and Morty
Um,
fans.
We're Rick and Morty fans. We're Rick and Morty fans that want to get a taste of that Rick and Morty, that little bit of
Little
Rick and
bits.
Morty, extra something, and that's why we aren't sauce fans because the majority of us haven't tried the sauce, and we haven't because it hasn't been readily available. And so they do go into some details where they talk about the helicopters that are circling certain McDonald's with riots and a store manager that locked herself in a cooler for 8 hours for fear of her own life, and that sucks. That sucks. That fans got out of hand, but realistically, like McDonald's has to shoulder. Oh, I said it. I said their name.
Oh,
Starting
Beep.
now. Starting now. They have to shoulder some of that blame, okay? Because they go through the motions of like, oh, well, was this an attempt to provide a limited supply in order to increase demand? Oh no, it wasn't that. But
We're not that smart.
you can't fake
That's direct
that you're
quote, by the way.
dumb. Yeah, they said they're not that smart. And to be fair, you have to have a pretty high IQ to be the vice president of a major corporation. But like if you're gonna respond to an overwhelming demand
You
and
fucking got him. You got him on that one. You got him.
and bring back the sauce, right? Like if you're gonna respond to that level of demand, then you have to expect that more than 200 people across the country are interested in trying it. So that is a failure on their part. And whether it was an attempt to just like it was an afterthought, like, hey, we'll just add some Szechuan into this existing campaign that we're already doing to promote our crispy nugs or whatever they are. Okay, but you're not gonna make people happy doing this. You're gonna piss a lot of people off. So
yeah.
so if you legitimately can't produce enough to meet the demand at that point, don't do it.
Po-
Like,
postpone the special advertising just a little bit. I think that's where I'm coming at it from is okay. One of their excuses is that, well, we wanted to add it to a pre-existing campaign, an event, and we did our best to make as much of the untitled Asian dipping sauce as we could, as fast as we could, and to make that date. Well, that's the thing is, this corporation knew, they knew what the hype was, and there's a couple segments of the podcast where like, well, we knew there was hype, but sometimes markets, even though there's hype online, the brick and mortar stores, you don't actually know if there's a demand actually in the market.
and again, like, I just want to comment on that aspect of it. Like,
Yeah.
it's a clear identifier that they were looking at the way that they could spin it to benefit big burgers, as opposed to realistically getting an idea of who the fans are and who and the level of interest in it. Because, like, coming from that perspective, like, we knew that there was going to be a lot of people interested in it. Like, you can spend an hour on Reddit and know that 200 packets is not going to cut it.
Yeah, it was with as many people as there are on Reddit, and just if you're in any way a fan, if you're not just a PR guy at a major corporation and you are a fan of the show, you would immediately say to yourself, you know what, I would probably I want to get in line, or I want to try to get this sauce, and even me, I was in Hawaii at the time. I I was hounding you early on that day, like, you should probably go earlier. You should probably go earlier. I would be there. I would be there earlier. I would have waited. God, and this makes me mad and a little bit, ashamed. Like, I would have gone there and waited at like 6, 7 in the morning to try to get it, because honestly, I would have done it just because I host a podcast for Rick and Morty.
Right.
But I would have done it, and I would have been one of the people who was pissed off that there was only 20 packets maybe at my location, or one of the folks who was on the podcast, the Sauce, talks about they came down from Canada and they went to Saskatchewan, or I don't know. They went to a store and there was Syracuse, and there was a sign on the door that says, "Sorry, we don't actually have any of the sauce." Like,
right. So an advertised participant in the promotion.
Yeah.
Didn't have it.
Right. So it's just it's just frustrating for them. So then they go on in episode 3 to then talk about how they're rectifying the situation.
Right.
And one dude, I forget who it is who says it, but he's like, even if we had made 5 times more sauce, 6 times, 20, 50, there wouldn't have been enough. To that point, I say, F you. No, it would have been way better if you had done that, because there would be more than 20 packets per store, maybe.
Yes.
If those packets hadn't been stolen by the employees or passed out to their friends.
Sold on eBay for a car, things like that.
This stuff wouldn't have happened. And I think that's one of my issues with the whole thing is they talk about during back to episode 2, like, oh, they looked on the news, like, oh, there's lines out in Phoenix. Oh, well, that's Phoenix. Good for Phoenix. Oh, there's lines in New York. Well, of course there's lines in New York, because it's New York City. And so blind. So blind to,
of course, there's
there's
lines.
only 20.
If you knew that of course there would be lines, send more than 20. Like,
Yeah.
And the whole concept, like, well, maybe people are in line because they love sweet and sour. Like, no, that's not
They're
why
there
people
for
are coming
our
out
new
in
line.
droves to hit up,
A big business spicy ranch burger sauce.
if I can't get that hot mustard, I don't know. I sure hope they still got that hot mustard when I get there. Uh,
Boy,
that's the other
got that
thing.
hot mustard. I don't
The
know why.
the
I'm just trying to do
store that I
accent.
went to
Yeah.
ran out of their new chicky nugs, their chicky tendies. They ran out of those hours before the promotion was supposed to start at like 1 o'clock or whatever the official release time was. They were like, "We're out. There are no more." I think they saved like one bag of them so that they could sell them with the promotion. But by the time they got through like the actual line of numbers that they had handed out, they would run out of those as well. So what was a requirement that you bought that to get the sauce, like they didn't have they didn't even conceptualize the demand for that. So good on them.
Good,
Uh,
good on them. But yeah, I mean, so all in all, there. So that now episode 3, they talk about, okay, well, no, we want to make it up to the fans of Unspecified Show, which is called Rick and Morty. Uh,
unspecified sci-fi rigmarole.
Huge pop culture phenomenon show we can't name out loud.
Two Annie Award winning Rick and Morty.
So they're pushing out so much sauce now to all these McDonald's all over the place, and they're trying to rectify the situation. One with this podcast, which I want to read off a tweet from our friend Sci-Fi Pie, which kind of nails their what we think the thought process is with corporation. He says, "So what is it that kids are into these days? I heard that they watch this thing called Rick and Morty. I think they also listen to a thing called podcasts. Bingo. That's big corporations PR arm.
So one of the things that we talk about at the top of this segment is that this is a podcast brought to you by the Big Burger, as well as Studio Gizmodo and Onion Labs. And when I first saw the Onion involved in this, I thought, oh, is this going to be satirical? Is this going to be a joke? It honestly wasn't really funny. It was an homage more to like a serial type podcast, but after 30 seconds of Google research, I realized that Onion Labs is a division of the company that utilizes their talents and skills to do unique advertising campaigns. Like what they are doing is they are selling products for companies in unconventional ways. They're using the skills and talents of their writers and their staff to advertise in a different way. And that's why realistically I have no problem saying these 3 podcasts are an advertisement. It's a commercial that lasts 41 minutes across 3 episodes, trying to maybe repair some PR blunders, but also to drum up additional interest because, as we all know, we are between seasons of Rick and Morty, and you can't ride the hype train on a show that isn't on anymore. So
Trust us, you cannot ride that hype train.
I heard that. So they have to drum up the interest a little bit more, right? So let's bring out an investigative journalist that will get to the bottom of what happened and get everybody thinking about it again, so that on February 26th they can rush out to their nearest fast food chain that is found everywhere, and get their hands on the sauce, right? So I want to say, good, they are finally getting it out there, but it doesn't quite make up for the number of mistakes that have been made on the way.
Yeah, I want to. We were tagged in a tweet by Den of Geek, and I talked to the writer of this article, which is about it's Rick and Morty Szechuan sauce returning to corporate. I changed the word on that again. And I responded to that article with this and saying nailed it to this following quote. Anyways, it remains to be seen what Corporation actually does next. But personally, I find it a bit gross. They're acting like this is all just a bit of fun, when in actuality, they were responsible for one of the most embarrassing ever displays of capitalism merged with geekdom. Also, is although it is well within their rights, it's kind of obnoxious the way they've slowly, craftily cannibalized the fan passion for Rick and Morty to serve their own chicken hawking means. And
Well
I
said.
think for me, that's kind of what this all boils down to is, I'm going to I hate to say it, but because I am a Rick and Morty fan, I am going to go to Corporation, and I'm gonna buy the sauce when it comes out on 26, because I have to.
Yeah.
It's like I'm obligated to, just by me talking about this show.
And I don't think that it's fair for any fan to feel like, oh, because they did such a bad job of getting it out, like, or because they, like, made some huge mistakes, now I'm not going to go try it. Like, if you want to try it, go try it. Like, and it is awesome that they have put forth the effort to get this out into stores so that fans that genuinely just want to get a taste of it, they can do that. It doesn't hurt them at all because they're still making tons of money off of us.
And hand over fist.
So yeah, like, it's awesome that they're getting it out there, but I still don't think of them as the good guy in this situation. It's hard for me to think that when a lot of the heartache and bad press is a result of them fumbling through this pinnacle of PR, POS, whatever.
Yeah, and when it comes down to it, we are fans of Rick and Morty, and we love this show. We are not. We're not doing a big corporation, big burger podcast, and we have no allegiance to them. We're here for you, Unity, and that's where our priorities lie. Uh, and but again, if you want to go try the sauce, try the sauce. I'm going to.
We're going
I
to. I mean, I tried it. I did get an opportunity to get one nugget's worth. Um, we talked about that again on that previous episode, but it's we've said for a long time that we're kind of over the sauce,
Yeah.
right? And I'm hopeful, Brandon, as we pass now 5 minutes past the sum total of the sauce's published recording time.
Yeah, we talked more about it than they have, and said Rick and Morty so many more times.
So many more times. Like, I'm really hopeful that this event, that everyone that realistically wants to try it gets a chance to try it. We can all realize just how heavy the soy sauce taste of it is. We can move on with our lives, and we can stop obsessing over it. It's always going to be part of the show. It's always going to be a part of one of the best episodes of the show still, I think. And the way that they introduced season 3 in such a unique way is groundbreaking, I think. And so it's a huge thing, but I'm hopeful that we can finally kind of move on from this. I know from this podcast's perspective, I think we're both very ready to move on and not cover this anymore. So that's sort of why we have a special episode where we can just air all of our grievances, not worry about anything else.
Be very forthright and tell you exactly how we feel about all of this. And we also want to make sure that we're going to talk about Meeseeks and Destroy next. In this, obviously, going at 49-50 minutes now talking about this stuff, we didn't want this to overpower and take over an episode discussion.
This would be the longest semi-pertinent news ever. And so we did feel like it was important to get it all out here, get it out in a special episode. I don't know, Brandon, is there anything else on this topic that you want to discuss kind of before we wrap things up?
I think I'm forgetting something, but I guess what I just want to close with, Unity, is thank you for listening. And when it comes down to it, again, we care about the fandom for this show, for Rick and Morty, and any corporations who are trying to co-opt our fan base. It's kind of personal,
Yeah,
and
it
and
does
I
feel
care I care
personal.
about you.
Yeah.
I I care about you, and I care about the people who are listening to this, wanting a fandom, and and just like if somebody insults my wife or insults you, Travis, to your face about how dumb you look, like I like that, I take that personal. I don't want people taking advantage of you or anybody I care about.
Right. Right.
And so that's why I felt like we had to talk about this in a separate podcast, directly to you, Unity.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Um,
So
hmm.
so that's our sauce talk. And hopefully many of you fulfill your year-long dream of going and getting some of this sauce. I know that several of you, Keegan sent us a picture that with a fistful of sauce. He's some
Yeah.
of these stores are not waiting till the 26th. They're just, yeah, we got it, we'll give it to you. What's the big clown gonna say, right? He's not even here today. So if you try the sauce, let us know what you think. Let
Yeah.
us know if you love it, you hate it.
We,
Let's we're gonna share those thoughts probably on our social media. So if you're not
yeah.
following us on there, definitely go and do that.
Because we're absolutely not shitting on you for wanting to experience and be a part of your fandom. Like
Right.
again, trying to sauce is not because I support Big Burger. I support the show, and that is a part of who I am now.
Right. Yeah. And so try it. Let us know what you think. If you listened to the Sauce podcast, uh, and you
Quotes.
think we're totally off base, if you think we're totally in the wrong here, let us know. But maybe if you have additional thoughts about it, shoot us that stuff
Yeah.
too. We'd love to continue to have this conversation either on our subreddit or on Twitter. Yeah, but and again, to the couple that traveled from Canada to Syracuse for sauce and is still hopeful and excited that they're going to get theirs, awesome. I'm glad your relationship survived this event. To Chef Mike, thank you for your support of this podcast, and thank you for being a genuine Rick and Morty fan, even if you're not allowed to say their names. Like,
Yeah.
thank you for that, and just to everybody that to the story of the guy, the one like shining example of good humans who like took his gallon of sauce and went to the local restaurant and was handing out servings of it. Like, that to me, in my experience, has been a better example of the Rick and Morty fan base. And Unity, you are definitely a part of that. There are a lot of memes and things that go around about internet fans and stuff, but there are a lot of really great people in this community. So thanks to all of you. And I think, Brandon, we are done.
I want to close it out on a tweet that this is kind of probably self-aggrandizing, but a tweet that we sent to the big corporates
We're gonna
tweet
have a hard
about
time
the
with this, man.
sauce coming out. We are. When it first came out, Travis and I, we both felt a little like, come on, like we do a Rick and Morty podcast. You couldn't have at least reached out to us. But so I responded with, "Oh my God! Anytime you want to come on our show to talk about your show that's talking about the sauce, which we talk about on our show that covers Rick and Morty, we'd love to have you." That's it. That's what I wanted to close it out on.
All right. Well, until a few days from now, we're talking Me Seeks and Destroy. Again,
Yeah.
if this is the first time you've listened to Interdimensional RSS, it is not like this on a regular
This is
basis.
special. This is a
Please
special episode.
subscribe to the show. We are almost midway through our season 1 recap. Last week we covered M. Night Shyamalan's, and
Oh,
next
yeah.
week we get into most Rick and Morty fans. They love them Meeseeks. So we're talking Meeseeks and Destroy next week. We are going through all of season 1. If you missed our season 3 episode recaps, those are all available on iTunes, Stitcher, wherever you find your podcasts. And then we have a whole bunch of other episodes where we're waiting for season 3. So feel free to catch up on those and let us know what you think. Rate, review, subscribe, do all those things. We're thankful that you're listeners. And next week we're gonna move past this.
Move past it.
And talk about how existence is pain.
That's right. But until then, everybody, thanks again. I'm Brandon,
And I'm Travis.
Oh, Travis. We'll see Unity later.
Is my face as red as my shirt, Brandon?
Yeah. We're so critical of things.